Marco Polo's Great Journey. Marco Polo was born in Venice, Italy, in the year 1254. Venice is a city built on water. It has narrow streets and many canals. People travel by boat. Marco's father, Niccolò, and his uncle, Maffeo, were merchants. They sold silk and spices. From a young age, Marco saw ships, loud markets, and people from different lands. He often helped his family in the busy market. He learned to count money and talk with travelers. When Marco was 17 years old, his father and uncle returned from a long trip. They told Marco about a great land called Cathay, far away in Asia. They spoke of tall mountains, wide deserts, and an emperor named Kublai Khan. Marco's eyes shone with excitement. "Father," he said, "I want to see these places too." His father smiled and put a hand on his shoulder. "The world is big and strange," he said. "It will be hard, but you can come with us." Marco felt both happy and a little afraid. Early in 1271, Marco, his father, and his uncle began their journey. They left Venice by ship at sunrise. The morning sky was pink and the sea was calm. Marco watched the city get smaller and smaller. After a few days, they reached the island of Crete. They walked through small villages and ate fresh fruit. Then they came to a port in the Holy Land. They saw old churches and mosques. Every evening, Marco wrote a short note in his notebook. "Today I saw a tall church," or "Today I ate sweet figs." Next, they crossed the desert of Persia. The sun was hot and the sand was everywhere. They rode camels. Camels ate thorny bushes and walked without water for days. Marco felt the camel's slow steps under him. At night, the sky was full of bright stars. He thought of Venice and the water. The temperature fell quickly when the sun went down. Marco wrapped his cloak tight around his shoulders to stay warm. After the desert, they climbed the high mountains called the Pamirs. The air was thin and cold. They walked in snow and fog. Marco slipped and fell once, but his uncle helped him up. They met shepherds and learned simple words in new languages. Hello in one language was salam. In another language, it was ni hao. Marco spoke slowly and pointed at things. "Water," he said, touching his cup. The shepherd smiled and gave him more water. 3 years after they left Venice, Marco and his family arrived at the court of Kublai Khan in China. Kublai Khan was a tall man with a long beard. He wore bright yellow silk robes and a cap with jewels. His palace had red walls and golden roofs. There were gardens with green bamboo and white peonies. Birds sang all day. Kublai Khan welcomed Marco warmly. "You are far from home," he said. "Welcome to my court." Marco bowed and said, "Thank you, great emperor." Marco lived in the emperor's palace for many years. He studied the Chinese language every day. He learned to read simple books and write his name in Chinese characters. He ate new foods, noodles with soy sauce, steamed buns, and spicy tea. He wore silk clothes and soft shoes. Every morning, he walked in the palace garden and fed the goldfish in the pond. The emperor gave Marco many tasks. He traveled to distant cities to deliver letters. He counted horses and camels in the army. He saw the Great Wall of China. The wall was long and high. Marco climbed a tower and looked down. He saw green hills that went on for miles. He felt proud and amazed. He sent a letter home. "I see the Great Wall. It is more beautiful than I thought." One day, Marco met a man from Marco's homeland. The man was a merchant from Venice, too. Marco felt happy to hear his language again. They spoke for hours and shared stories of home. The merchant gave Marco a small glass flask filled with wine. Marco laughed and drank a little. He missed the gentle breeze of the Venetian lagoon. In 1292, after 17 years in Asia, Marco, his father, and his uncle decided to return to Venice. They sailed by ship from a Chinese port to India. They stopped in Calicut and saw busy markets with spices piled in cones. They walked on a small wooden boat over the Arabian Sea. The sea was calm, but sometimes big waves hit the boat. Marco held the railing and closed his eyes. He remembered the desert, the mountains, the palace, and the Great Wall. After many months at sea, they reached Persia again. They crossed the desert and mountains once more. They ate the same sweet figs and rode the same camels. Then they reached the Mediterranean Sea. At last, they sailed into the Adriatic. Venice came into view at dawn. The city's towers and domes shone in the morning light. When Marco arrived, most people did not believe his stories. They thought he told lies. "There is no Great Wall," they said. "There are no rivers of black stones." But Marco smiled and showed his notebook. He had simple drawings of the palace, the wall, and strange animals. He drew a paper with Chinese characters. People were curious. Some merchants listened carefully. A few years later, Marco fought in a war between Venice and Genoa. He was captured and went to a prison in Genoa. In his small prison cell, he met a writer named Rustichello. Marco told Rustichello all his stories. He spoke slowly, and Rustichello wrote everything down. They sat on a wooden bench and talked for days. Marco said, "In China, I saw mountains of salt, rivers of silver, and cities of glass." Rustichello wrote every word. When Marco got home again, Rustichello's book, The Travels of Marco Polo, was ready. The book traveled across Europe. Kings and nobles read it by candlelight. They dreamed of the rich lands in Asia. Traders used Marco's book to plan new trips. Sailors read about spices, silk, and precious stones. The world felt smaller because of Marco's words. Today, we remember Marco Polo as one of the first travelers to tell Europe about Asia. His journey taught us that people can learn from each other. He showed that courage, curiosity, and respect are important. He was brave to leave home and learn a new language. He was kind when he met new people. And he was patient when he taught others about his world.